Do you,
Well, I suppose I could just speak to her drawings.
why don't you go ahead if you feel comfortable? It's
Although, sorry, I'm having the same problem I was having at the beginning, but I think it's working out. Okay, so is it going black for everyone else, or can you?
Yes, it's gone black again. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
We can see it.
Maybe Carl, while I'm chatting, you can try to get Bianca. So we'll be providing, as I mentioned, a rooftop patio at the building steps up from a single story to 2 stories. So on top of the first story, there'll be a rooftop patio, which will serve a daycare. There is proposed lush planting on that patio at the perimeter to provide a buffer to Wallace Street and Terminal, and to provide some visual interest from the street. We have proposed a patio, as I mentioned, off of the restaurant. This is the second floor plan, but it would be off of the restaurant below, as well as differentiated paving to demarc the entrance to the market from the parking lot. The pedestrian connection from Wallace Street, and there have been comments from planning about creating a more direct or apparent connection, which we fully agree with, and we've discussed. A landscape buffer, which will provide rainwater retention along the sidewalk at Terminal. Some improvements to the slope of this sort of natural slope coming up to Wallace Street. A garbage enclosure, which we're actually looking at moving closer to the PMT to kind of put it closer to the building. And then jumping to the landscape plan, we'll be providing planting along the sidewalk here adjacent to the patio to provide a buffer for that patio. I'd say a relatively generous or formal landscape buffer along the remainder of Terminal to kind of hide to provide a buffer for the parking lot from the street. This is where I'm beyond my pay grade.
Hi, Colin. I'm here.
Okay, phew.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bianca Bodley. I'm the principal from Biophilia Design Collective, and I'll speak to the landscape plan. So here we are, starting on the rooftop patios. So recognizing that there are 2 main arteries on either side of the building, we have located a series of planters along both the east and western side there, which will be metal planters with shrubs in them to provide both a sound barrier for the users of the patio and also a visual buffer from the street. And then we'll also soften the building's approach or views from the street with a sort of green border there. And then we're planning to do 5-foot-high glass on the other side there to offer some visual screening. So the plant material that we've selected is drought tolerant and also has a large palette of pollination plants and structural evergreens for the low maintenance aspect. And I'm happy to answer any specific questions around that as they may come up. Next slide, please.
Okay, I already introduced or went over as best I could the overall landscape plan, which I think we've covered sufficiently. I don't know if there's anything specific you want to cover on this
Okay.
slide, Bianca?
Sure. Well, I'm around any question.
Okay. And then the lighting plan I hadn't got to.
Sure. So to provide safety for the use of the space at night, we've offered a variety of different lighting aspects. So in starting at the rooftop planter, we have some uplighting in those planters, which will highlight those evergreens that are there. And then on the commercial patio space, similarly in those planters, we'll have uplights, perhaps uplighting bamboo or structural evergreens, kind of to be decided on that. And then of course, on the driveway entrance, things will be kept below 1 meter for visuals as you're going in the driveway. At the staircase for the public pedestrian access, there's some downlights in the stairwells themselves, like attached to the aluminum railings of the stairwell. And then finally, another uplight in the tree planter, which is adjacent to the bike parking. In the parking area, we have located some security lighting for tall bollard lights at a appropriate cadence at the start, middle, and end of the parking spaces, both to the east and west, and then uplights in the trees and bollard lighting along the opposite side to Terminal Ave there. Yes, that's just a brief overview of the lighting. And again, happy to answer any questions about the rest of the landscape. Sorry, I jumped on late there.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. If you don't mind to stop sharing your screen so I can have a look at all of us. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you again for your presentation. Do any of the design panel members have any questions for staff regarding this presentation? No.
I might just like to check who's responsible for the fence on Wallace Street, on the Wallace Street side, sort of above the parking lot, not behind the building, but say from the building that stretches all along the top. Is that the city's, or would that be part of this property?
We will be addressing, or we will be updating the fence along Wallace Street.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions before I ask you for your comments? No? Maybe I'll start with you, Marie, if you would like to go first.
Sure, thanks, Kate. Yeah, first of all, let me say thank you so much for doing something with this building. I've been around Nanaimo for over 30 years. I remember the A&B sound there. I remember the parking lot at the back was where they installed all the audio into cars. I remember the looks of that building, and it wasn't even attractive in those days. So it's just so nice to see a plan for this property, and something I hope will happen and become a really sort of live space downtown. So anyway, first of all, just talking about your form and character, I appreciate how you've addressed the historical aspect, particularly thinking about the sort of modern lines of the building as opposed to the more, almost the old historical brick look. I'm actually a little bit disagreeing with the staff in that sense. I know it's part of the old city guidelines here, but I think you make a good case for considering a more modern, streamlined look. But that said, I'm a little concerned about, say, a totally white building there, because I think it really stands out quite starkly from everything around it. Many of the buildings, even the city hall, has been painted a different color. So I'm even wondering if considering perhaps just the shade of white, not quite so stark, or toned down, or a pastel, or something there. I don't want to get too sort of far away from your design, but I'm just thinking that all white makes that building really stand out as very different, even though you've addressed some of the sort of more sort of deco or modern type of line, and I appreciate that. And I like the way you've opened up the whole storefront face of that building. That will be a really big help. And having using the parking lot in the back and making it active with a patio space and that sort of thing. So all of those things I just think are really a big bonus, and I really appreciate your efforts in that regard. So that would be my one comment in terms of the forming characters. Just maybe consider the color, if we really want such a stark white color in that area. My other thought was I brought up the fence because I actually have an office space right across from that parking lot. So I watch a lot of the people that sort of hang out and they climb over the fence and they live in that bush. And it'll be nice to have that sort of cleaned up. But I'm wondering what kind of fence are you thinking of having up there? Right now, I think it's a black painted wire fence.
There's the material palette of the building is the stucco finish, glass, metal, the cedar soffits, but also a perforated metal, and that perforated metal would show up at the stairs from Wallace Street down to the parking lot. There's an area along Wallace Street where you can climb on the roof right now, so we would use that perforated metal flush with the parapet at the area where it's climbable, and then we would also use it. We're also considering using it along Wallace Street with the fence. So the idea would be that it would be about 4.5 feet high, and then relatively transparent in terms of the opening for visibility.
Okay, that sounds good. Speaking of a staircase too, it just looks sort of like I don't know what you call that stair. It's very simple metal. I'm just wondering, there seems to be so much space there to even be a little more inventive and make something of a statement with the staircase. It's just a thought. I'm not sure if it's possible or if that gets too expensive.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really get a close up of the stair, but we have through our design developments, we're quite happy with how we think it's going to turn out. We've looked at different options for the stair, and we feel good about the fact that it'll be a nice that it'll contribute to the overall design.
Well, there's almost a complementary space near there behind what used to be the Gene Burns building was the China steps. And there's sort of something neat when you add some steps into that sort of cityscape. I think of some city like Paris, and you go up hills and there's a little back way. So I just thought maybe there's some interesting things you could do with that staircase just to make it a little more interesting than just a functional staircase up there. And speaking of which, too, is that staircase go up to the roof garden, or can public access the roof garden, or is that just only for tenants?
No, the roof garden would be on the other side of the second story from there. So the only access to the roof garden would be for that tenant, which we're hoping will be a daycare.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah. The second floor is the tenancies are still being confirmed, but the intent is for offices, for approximately 2 offices and a daycare.
Oh, so you've already got some tenants kind of.
Well, no, that's the target.
The target, okay. And you mentioned a market on the lower floor. I thought actually it's quite a great space for that. And you've got the Man Lee's just across the parking lot, so there's a nice connection there as well. So. Anyway, I really appreciate what you're doing, and I look forward to seeing this project realized. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Marie. I will ask Tony, would you like to make your comments?
Sure, thank you. I just have a question first. Speaking of that second floor patio, I didn't quite understand through the drawings how accessible it is. I'm assuming, is there an elevator or is there some access? And particularly if there's daycare involved, could you?
You share your screen if you'd like.
Hopefully the black thing doesn't, flashing thing doesn't happen again. But oh no. Oh, sorry, this is the appendix, and I didn't check the quality of the
Well, just an explanation of
that's
how
a
you.
slide. Yeah, sorry. So I don't know if you could make this out at all. This is the second floor. This is the rooftop patio.
Yeah.
This would be the daycare here. There's a light well that brings light in down to the from the exterior wall here. It brings light down to the market below. There's a glass wall here that looks down from the daycare into that void as well. And then so the daycare would have access to the rooftop patio, direct access from the suites.
No, my question was, how do you get to the second floor? Thereafter getting to the patio, is there an elevator? How do you get all the kids from the daycare up and down?
Oh,
I'm thinking about wheelchair access.
From Wallace Street.
Does it come directly in then from the upper street level?
It does, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. That was what I was just getting clarification on. I appreciate that. Okay. That makes all kinds of sense now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I missed it. So my comments generally are echoing Marie's appreciation for what you're doing to clean up this little building, and what I think is going to be a great contribution to this quite pedestrian area is one of the nicest little scales of a neighborhood I think that you could find in a lot of cities. And I really appreciate your providing the historic and contextual background. I think that was very helpful. So great location and so forth. I really like the clean lines, the simplicity, and almost the kind of stark quality that you've brought here. This could just as easily be a very busy kind of an exterior design, sort of, which would end up competing with all the other buildings around it. Instead, it's almost like a little, not quite a jewel in the center of all of the other disparate architectural styles around it. But I think its very location in the center of all that, as I think you illustrated, suggests something really simple, clean lines. And I must disagree with Marie. I really quite like the stark white color because it again doesn't try and compete with the other buildings around it. I think it would just be too busy. But what I think it's going to do is it's going to really set off what's most important about this building, which is the canopy and the streetscape. And I think the streetscape in your illustrations, your perspectives and so forth, showed the glass as pretty bland looking glass. In reality, I'm sure it's going to be full of color and display and transparency and people inside, outside, and so forth. It'll look a lot more lively even than those excellent renderings that you showed us. So everything from sort of the canopy down to the sidewalk, I think is going to be quite, a very positive and lively contribution to the streetscape and thereby the pedestrian experience. So I don't have a problem with the white above the canopy because I think, frankly, that's a little less important. And I think what you're doing for the streetscape here is a really good contribution. So I commend you on the approach that you've taken. That's all I got to say. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Tony. And if the applicant wouldn't mind to stop sharing their screen, please. Thank you. All right, I will ask Angela, please, for your comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Kate. Thank you, everybody, for your presentation. Thank you, Colin. Wonderful project, really exciting to be involved in this, I'm sure. I'd like to start off by saying I do really appreciate the enhancement along Terminal Ave for the with the landscaping and the outdoor amenity there. That's going to drastically improve pedestrian experience along there and create some lively public experience there. So, and I love the addition of the rooftop patio. I think that's great. I think there'll be some beautiful views from there. as well down Terminal Ave. So as far as comments go, I'll just start with the rooftop deck, especially considering the use is proposed to be a daycare. Just feel like I think it would benefit to having some additional sort of trees. So to provide for shading, for if it is a daycare, then children can have some shading, some natural shade. And as well as obviously a little bit of programming, maybe some bench seating or patio areas. So I think that would be a benefit to the patio. As just staying on sort of the landscaping theme, I did look around the site too and had a similar. I didn't realize that you did incorporate access from Wallace at first, but before I noticed that, I was looking around in that sort of area where people are sleeping, I suppose that's not landscaped currently in your plan. And I was thinking that especially if you're going to be thinking about relocating your garbage into that corner where the stairs come down, maybe you might want to consider relocating the stairs to the northeastern corner of the lot and sort of come down and through that bank area that's currently just kind of an eyesore and full of invasive species and people's garbage and stuff. So I feel like that area could be greatly enhanced and it would benefit your site as well, to just clean it up, maybe incorporate that into your landscaping plan and then potentially add stair access through that area. So that's just an idea. I'm assuming that that's still within your property boundary.
Yeah, and a question, can I respond to any of these, or should I just let everyone just, provide their comments? This is one that if I can, just that planning had actually advised, we'd looked at that location originally, and planning had actually said that at the moment that they preferred it to be closer to the building, because having a stair over there, they felt that it would just become a place for, until the area is really fully kind of active again, it would become just a problematic area. So that we did look at that, but they were kind of advised to put it closer to the building.
And a couple more comments on my end there, Colin, is that we're considering lighting that area quite well through the stair lighting, as well as through the planters underneath. So there'll be both up lights and down lights. And we did also discuss enclosing the base of the stairs so as to not enable anyone to sort of be housed temporarily or otherwise underneath the stairs. Just so that those considerations were made. And our intent was also to remove invasive species when enhancing the rest of the landscape in the gardens as well. So they'll be greatly improved and invasives will be removed. So I think that as the building takes shape, so will the landscape.
Okay, great. Yeah, I do think also too, if the stairs were able to be moved over to that location, if that is still on the table, I feel like it's a nicer view of the street and down the streetscape as well, rather than be tucked right in against the building. Mm-hmm. So that's just my thoughts on that. Also too, the big corrugated retaining wall is pretty in your face a little bit. So I don't know if there's a possibility to incorporate some hanging vegetation that might grow and just sort of nicely hang up down it to sort of break up that massive wall, metal wall. What else do I have here? So form and character. At first I was kind of like, oh, white. I wasn't so sure, and it kind of grew on me, but I did feel that in terms of the texture, and you talked about having some perforated metal within the facade. And because I was sort of thinking that if you had some kind of texture material on the Wallace Street side, it might break up some of that bleak, just straight white and incorporate some of that perforated metal. There is a building further down Wallace. I don't know what the address is, but it's got really cool perforated facade. And I just felt like maybe something like that could be incorporated into the Wallace street of the building. And then I was just curious, I didn't see in the plans if there was any bike storage or showers for employees. I just felt like that might be a nice sort of amenity for employees, would be bike storage within the building and or like showers for commuters. And also if there is going to be a daycare, maybe there's locals that will be riding bikes to the daycare with their children, and maybe the children might want to park their bikes there as well. So that's me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. And Tyler, would you?
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks to Colin and the team for presenting. Very excited to see this project, so very happy that's here tonight. So thank you for that. I'm going to sort of pick up, I think, where Tony left off. I too disagree with Marie's comments. I really actually, I tend not to comment on color, but I think I really actually thought it was sharp and looked really great. And I think there's a building further up Terminal Ave that was recently sort of redone. I think it's an accountant's office, something like that. That's white, and I've always, every time I've walked by it from both the bridge and on the terminal, I've thought it just really clean and adds value without standing out in a way that says, "Look at me." I just think it fits really nice into the context. So I generally think the building, especially for what you're working with, looks great, and kind of highly support the vision that you've gone with. Really, only two comments. Well, first, a comment. I think the rooftop patio is a really cool addition, and I hope Mr. Steiner on the call will forgive me, but I've already enjoyed that rooftop patio a couple times, and it's quite a nice location. So to see that formalized, I think would be really well utilized. The only two real comments I have is the staff comment around enhancing the market entrance. I do think there is something that could be done there to just sort of make its presence a little more known. And I think that would also serve value to the actual use of the building. And then the second, I appreciate the comments on the stairwell. I understand it's a little bit of a calculation between what we would like to see and then sort of what some of the present day realities are. But I do think on the Wallace Street side, it's our downtown traditionally is, quite divided. There's the unfortunate circumstance of the highway that sort of cuts it off on the one side of the site. But that Wallace Street connection is, I think, crucial to connecting the Victoria Crescent and this site with the old city and start to make a more cohesive downtown. And I don't think you can do much with the chain link fence or with the parking below, but I do think there's something you could do with that Wallace Street to just make it a little bit more engaging. And maybe it is as simple as enhancing that second floor entrance, but it still comes across as sort of a dead wall to me, that it currently is. And I do think it's an important connection that a more interesting facade in some fashion. I don't think it needs to take away from what the vision of the building here, but it just, when I look at it, and I've gone back and I went down there and I was sort of had my iPad in hand and was trying to see if it was an improvement. It still felt sort of like it was a little bit dead. So that would be my only comment. And, I would hope that would make it in a recommendation, Madam Chair, to see if we can look to enhance that a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brown. And I'd like to ask Ken if you would like to make your comments, please.
Okay. Actually, I generally agree with Tony and Tyler, and I really must compliment the client on improving this space, because it certainly is an eyesore at the present time. And I really like the simplicity and how the architect has treated the volumes very simply, and the facades. I like the idea of the canopy along Terminal Avenue, all glass along there at street level. And I also like the white. I think it's a nice contrast. It simplifies. It's a very simple design. My only comment, and I was driving down Terminal the other day, and I noticed that the west elevation, right now, there's a nice mural. And I'm wondering, only you have a, part of that west elevation, you'll have a blank wall, and maybe it's an opportunity for a nice mural, because it really would stand out as you drive down Terminal Avenue going south. So, and I like the way the landscaping was handled. And I agree that maybe the entrance to the market could be a little more attractive. And some of the comments that Tyler made about Wallace Street, making that, right now it's very plain. Maybe some articulation might be required to at the entrances, especially like a daycare entrance, maybe it's signage or whatever, could enhance that Wallace Street and make it more interesting. But other than that, I think I'd like to commend both the architects and the developer for taking this up, to the next stage. That's sort of my comments.
Thank you very much, Ken. And then lastly, I will add my comments, and I generally agree with everything that has been said. I appreciate what you've done with the building and the style you are presenting, and I don't really have a problem with the color. But I would like to talk a little bit about the landscaping and the parking. I agree that I think you have some opportunity there to improve the marketplace entrance, especially because that, as Ken pointed out, that side of the building is very visible, and because the parking lot is remaining next to it, I think doing something there is going to be important. And in doing that, maybe making your connection to the stairs more defined and prominent. So maybe you have a similar paving surface that goes in front of that loading and unloading, and that the loading, so that you have it feels more like a plaza, like a market might have in front there. And you could use bollards or to differentiate what's going on. But I think you need to do a little massaging around that and make that more important. Because I think this parking lot in particular needs a little more effort in how it's designed, because it's so visible and it is defining an important street, Terminal Avenue. And I also think, as stated by the staff, a little more prominence in that planting that goes along the street. Something what the staff had suggested, raised planter. I'm not sure if that's a solution, but I think more attention there, because this is a main street, and to kind of keep that corridor feeling, it's important to do something significant in that planting. And I have a question for Bianca. I think in our drawings that we were presented with, it didn't show it as a swale, but I'm assuming now it's going to be acting like a swale. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So my vision for that swale is actually that it's going to be a beautiful massed rain garden. So it'll have, grasses and perennials and then trees. So I think as to the added structure, there wasn't any direction particularly given by staff, but I think when we do an elevation or a rendering of that space, I think that it will hopefully tick the boxes that people are looking for. And indeed exactly what you just described with the wayfinding and the signage and the changing of pavers as it runs across the loading bay into the market with a sign for the market. We discussed that all just yesterday in response to the staff's comments. So we're definitely on the same page there as well.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
And then also I would like to, I agree too that the Wallace Street side of the building needs some attention or something. Maybe it is, if you are definitely carrying a childcare center, maybe it is something unique where that childcare center entrance is. I am an advocate for letting children know that they were thought of. And so maybe you can do something kind of fun and whimsical, which will just kind of pop out on your very elegant, sort of simple building. And speaking of it being a childcare, if that is the fact that outdoor space is, I'm assuming, would be their dedicated outdoor space, which is required, correct? So you will have to make, obviously, as you know, it will have to be of the right size for the number of children. And it's a very exposed spot. So you may want to consider with your architecture providing some dappled lighting, because it's quite exposed. It's sort of south, what facing, anyway, lots of sun. So currently it's a little bit of a hospitable environment for children. Hostile, sorry, wrong word. Environment. And you need to, I think, add more vegetation up there if that's the real intended use. And to contemplate the type of vegetation, I see that in the planting palette there is some bamboo, and that might be more appropriate up there where it has no room to spread, because I think you may have a spreading type bamboo specified, which I would caution against. And using something that can create more texture, movement for children. Also contemplating scent and smells and picking if that is in fact how it's going to be used. So I hope that as your design develops, you will pay attention to that space, because I'm an advocate for quality outdoor childcare spaces, and I would hate for you to miss opportunity to provide something really good. And there are excellent examples of outdoor childcare spaces in rooftop settings in Vancouver, and I encourage you to take a look at those and encourage you to provide that kind of quality space. So that's another one of my comments. And then lastly, I would love for the landscape architects to contemplate the plantings that you're going to put at the base of that, of those big leaf maples. I think they're big leaf maples. Anyway, the existing trees along the bank. I would love for you to contemplate thinking of it as more of a restorative approach. I think currently you're putting in smaller shrubs, heathers, a few other things. I would love to see you, work at removing invasives and bringing that back and taking a more restorative approach to that part of the landscape, because it is kind of an interesting, important part of Terminal Avenue, that ravine and that edge with the maples, and trying to restore it, I think, would be a really great gesture to our city. And so I'd like for you to contemplate that as well. Okay, so that's my comments. Now I need to summarize what has been said. So I believe we have Marie. I'm wondering about the color of the building, if you would like to include that as a recommendation, or given the comments from the other design panel members, if you would like to change that. Oh,
I'll go with the group.
You'll go with the group? Okay.
The group. I think I might have an aesthetic bias about strong white buildings. I'll hold to that. I think otherwise, I think in terms of the character and how they've dealt with it, the form of it for renovating an old building, I think they've done a great job. So that's fine. Okay,
thank you. So I think I've heard that we, as far as speaking to the architecture, the character of the architecture, we would like the applicants to look at the Wallace Street edge, and I'm trying to think how to consider ways of, creating some differentiation on that edge, or adding, I'm not sure the wording we want to use.
To enhance the character of the Wallace Street facade? Yes,
how about that? In to consider enhancing the character of the Wallace Street facade, or to differentiate it from, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. To consider enhancing the character of the Wallace Street facade. Number 2, the I guess, is it the West Street, the park, to consider enhancing the market entry, and then in considering that elevation as well, that it is a prominent elevation that is seen from a distance. So that's number 2. We agree, I think, with the city comments to improve the pedestrian connection with the stairs. I guess that's tied in with the enhancing the market entry. To Angela, I know you commented as well on the rooftop, thinking about shade and dapple lighting. So maybe to consider improving the rooftop garden with more plantings and shade dapple lighting, given the user group you're targeting.
Could I jump in on that just for a second to clarify? We may have a restaurant, or we may have an office, or we may have a daycare. We'd love for it to be a daycare. And if it does happen to be that, some of the protection from sun, maybe a patio sort of umbrella, or like a nice awning that would be negotiated with that tenant, because some of those things, like you may know about playground structures, which appear to be just metal and plastic or wood, if it's a really nice one, actually are super expensive. And so the cost of that is sometimes shared between builder and user. And in this case, I think we would address those, but it may come further down and not be tied into the DP or building permit. It could be a tenant's permit later on. And even if it is a restaurant, I think we'd need some umbrellas, or we'll need something. I just want to make sure that we don't, same with maybe signage. If it's not like a wayfinding sign, it's a tenant sign, we'll have design guidelines so that it all looks clean and uniform, but it may not, I think, be the thing that we focus on now, because we have, I don't know, a bunch of other things that Colin's working on, like the other aspects. But yeah, I want to make sure that it's known we're thinking about that, but we also can't jump the gun on some things.
Oh, good, thank you. And we are just making recommendations, so yeah.
Totally understood.
But I do encourage you as a developer, I just make a comment, there's very little purpose-built childcare, and making that step forward and taking that plunge is, I think, a really good one. Okay. Back to my comments. So I don't know if Lori's is deciphering my ramblings. But so we have the Wall Street elevation, the market entry and the elevation, the improved pedestrian connection through the parking lot, and then mine regarding the sort of planting pellet in particular. I don't encourage using bamboo that has the spreading nature. There are other clumping bamboos. So yes, Bianca.
Just to mention, Kate, that bamboo is actually in the planter for the potential restaurant that will be going in the bottom. It's not actually in the ground; it's in a planter, metal.
Okay.
I share your fear.
Okay, it wasn't clear, and so I just have to make note. But to contemplate the existing trees, so I'll make that a recommendation to contemplate that as taking a restorative approach to it, and as you move in enhancing that space. So was there any other comments, design panel members, that I may have missed?
No.
No, is that okay?
Angela made a good one about the corrugated metal wall.
Oh, yes,
In
right.
the parking lot, that perhaps consider some plantings that would hide that.
Right, excellent. So maybe consider plantings at the top of that wall that may be able to cascade over and buffer or soften and or up the wall from the bottom. I'm not sure how much space you have. Yeah, and generally, I am also, just as a note, agree with the staff comments that I think you could look at adding more green into the parking area. So whether you add more trees, which would be always lovely, or planted areas, especially if you end up moving that garbage container, you may have, it looks like there's space there for a buffer. Okay, so just to review, we have the recommendation to look at improve the Wallace Street elevation, or the, I'm just going to say the design, I forget what I said already. The Wallace Street, I don't know if Lori got my...
Consider enhancing the Wallace Street elevation.
Consider enhancing the Wallace Street elevation, the market entrance and that elevation, and improving the pedestrian connection to the stairs and in front of the market. Consider treating the existing trees and planted area as more of a restoration, and consider, I say, ways to add vegetation to that corrugated wall, and lastly, to consider adding more trees or green space to that parking lot area. Does that sound okay? Can I have a motion to accept the recommendations? Okay, thank you, Tony, and a seconder. Okay, thank you, Angela. So thank you. Do I have to say motion? Yes.
All in favor?
All in favor of accepting the applicant as presented with the recommendations. Sorry, once again, all in favor? Great, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation. And we look forward to seeing your project evolve.
Thank you, everybody. Can't wait to see it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a nice night.
Okay, I was going along okay, and then I started to forget what I was saying.
I think it was great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
You've done good, Kate.
Thank you. It's been a long day. All right, moving on to our second presentation applicant for the night. And Caleb, are you also present? Are you also introducing this project?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I can introduce this one as well.
Thank you.
The second item on tonight's agenda is development permit application DP 1269, and this is for 1840 Stewart Avenue. The subject property, well, actually, I should note it is technically not a titled property. It is a water lease lot, subject to our zoning. The subject site is in the Harbor Waterfront W2 zone. And the relevant design guidelines are the general DPA design guidelines and the Newcastle and Brecon urban design framework and guidelines. Similar to the previous proposal, the applicant is not proposing to construct new buildings, but to redevelop existing structures on the lot. In this case, there are 3 existing buildings with a total gross floor area of just over 2,000 square meters. There has been one variance identified to date, and that is to vary the setback from the sea for new canopies and columns at the rear of the building 1. With that, I will invite the applicant to make the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caleb. Nice to see you all this evening. Just before we get started, I'd like to take this opportunity to have Jason, who is working with us as part of the development group and the construction management to maybe just introduce at a high level the intention and the vision for the project, and then I can say a few words about how we're approaching the existing buildings and share some of the information with you. So, Jason, if you're happy to introduce yourself and the project, that would be awesome.
Thanks, Glenn. Everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Excellent. My name is Jason Gild. I've been a resident of Nanaimo pretty much, well, since birth. So I've seen the changes that's taken place for this particular 1840 Stewart Avenue. I'm currently working with Nanaimo First Nation on bringing some of the cultural aspects to the building on the forefront. I know I can speak for SFN to say how extremely excited they are to display parts of their culture on this particular location, especially since it's adjacent to such an island. Overall, we've seen a lot of changes in that area, and it has become quite dilapidated, the main building. And I think what Glenn's done to showcase, the overall design is really captured what Nanaimo is looking for. So with that, I'll just pass it on to Glenn.
Thanks, Jason. So I'll just do a little screen share here. Share screen. So if everyone can see where my screen, we'll just roll through a couple of the high level stuff, as Caleb said. This is the sort of the current zoning for the area. We're located right here next to the right in the center of the W2 lease land, and we're in the Brecken and Stewart Avenue neighborhood. So this is sort of illustrating the extensive residential neighborhood that flanks the edge of the Newcastle Channel and the significant W2 zone that's reaching from BC Ferries and heading inward towards downtown. So this is an incredibly unique opportunity to kind of salvage some infrastructure that is in desperate need of repair. It has some of its own significance, and I do appreciate the previous application and the team's effort to work within existing infrastructure to find those potentials and those opportunities to kind of build on what has been there, and acknowledge that there is a certain historical reference. And similarly, we're approaching this with a somewhat similar in a similar vein, where we have an existing structure and existing buildings, and they all come with a bit of a legacy and history. And we want to try and promote that while bringing them up to a condition that are really going to contribute. And I hope, and I'm confident that they'll extend not only the life of the buildings, but they'll promote the culture of Nanaimo seawall, and with its proximity to a major tourism and travel hub, that it will be just one of many contributors to how our seawall develops over the next number of years. So just a quick overview there. I've borrowed our good friend Google Earth to kind of give us the same kind of overview of the existing buildings nestled within a fairly significant and cultural kind of venue of marine industry, marine sales, and obviously the BC Ferries and everything associated with that, the major connectors along Stewart Avenue and Brecken. We are located right inside this is the neighborhood area plan. So again, we can see the significant residential neighborhoods, commercial, and the waterfront culture. And so what we've started with is as you can see from Google Maps, we've got a building that is kind of almost at the end of its life based on the exterior, but an incredibly unique piece of property with its adjacencies. so that we wanted to exploit what's there and give it a fresh lease on life, and do that through our approaches via a reconfiguration of the parking and a landscape approach, and then building envelope cladding and some to mostly on building one a regeneration of uses within that what was the old market building. Miller's Pub is located here, is going to remain as the pub, and Stone's Marina is in this third building, and the intention is that they would be staying there, providing the services and light industry kind of maintenance to kind of support the boating culture in the area. Within the existing building, there is the new marijuana store has opened, I believe, or no, or it's planned for, and Beefeater's restaurant is still operational. Everything else, I think there was a couple of things that were running. The kayak store, I believe, that's not really running anymore. But so yeah, we've got an underutilized building that we want to take a fresh approach on. My presentation sort of does a quick overview. There are certain parts and aspects of the site that are a little bit of a challenge for us, but and we want to kind of work with planning to address them and inch forward on a solid approach for rejuvenation for the entire site. We've got a fairly steep bank along Stewart Avenue identified here. You can see the fairly aggressive slope across Stewart, which kind of runs down Zorkin and to the entry point to the site here. We've got obviously the existing failing condition of the exterior envelope for the two buildings, Miller's and Stone's, and then we have the existing building canopies and exterior cladding roof systems, which are in desperate need of repair. This is a view from the other direction. If you're traveling north along the seawall past Carlos and Bud's restaurant, and there's the pathway. Part of the existing seawall approaches from the south, and there is a fairly significant pinch point at the existing building as that walkway returns and comes out around the front of the building, which we can talk about. So generally speaking, the approach is the existing building. Building one is going to be a collection of commercial retail spaces that would be leased through the new owners, with a primary cultural entryway that recognizes the culture and art of the Nanaimo First Nation, and potentially an extension of that into the building as a place for an observation place for gallery pieces and or commercial retail, etc. And then larger and smaller commercial retail ventures within a sort of an appropriately sized partitioning of the big building. As we said, Beefeater's restaurant is still operational, and it's intended to stay, with potentially another restaurant happening in here. And we'll talk about how that has informed how some of the exterior is being crafted on the waterfront side. Miller's Pub is staying where it is, and the Stone's Marina is staying where it is. We've reconfigured the parking layout. We've tried to achieve. I think we've achieved the parking required based on a current approach of what each suite would be via retail, etc. And then we've located. There's an existing garbage, and there's an enclosure here for fuel tanks and stuff. So we're adding another one to service the potential of this filling up. And our new parking spaces are kind of realigned in order to try and create some opportunity for landscaping with security lighting and everything set up in there. So it's working with an existing building. The seawall comes through here and comes around, and currently kind of wraps around to here, and and then there's some access driveways to slips and parking, and then there is a reconnection to Zorkin at this side. So at a high level, what we are hoping to do at this point, and we'll be sort of checking back and forth with planning through the process, but what we want to do is create a very strong linear approach or part of the seawall that while it peels away from the waterfront, it directs you directly across the front of the building, engaging in the totem poles that are going to be part of the entry of the new building. And then we're hoping to reconnect to the sidewalk on this side, which will bring pedestrians up Zorkin and across and connect over to the pathway that would ultimately lead you around to Departure Bay. Like I said, our building is, we're working with the exterior envelope. We're creating a series of, an array of sizes of retail spaces, smaller ones, the ambition being coffee shops, ice cream shops, things that would promote the culture of the seawall walk, and hopefully a significant retail or restaurant component with exterior decks and patios that would take full advantage of being at the prow and entryway into Newcastle Channel and the water. There's a small second floor component to the building, but essentially working within the existing rafters and structure of the building. The two little other buildings are fairly simple. The Stones Marina is just a commercial space. There's a couple of residential suites up above. The image here gives you a little diagram of how we're working with all of the existing structure, but crafting a palette of materials that's indicative of waterfront, semi-industrial, commercial, and the boatyard style, which we think is fairly appropriate and a compelling way to redress the buildings. Miller's Pub is, ground floor. There's in the pub, and then above that there's another residential suite. Up here, we've made a little change to this building with a new canopy, just to create a bit more livability in that unit. And then these are some elevation images of how we're proposing to change the look, feel, and character of the building. This is building one's front elevation. So if you were parking and approaching building one, you would be, the primary entry would be identified with a significant new canopy, which it would replace the existing Sealand Market boat prow that is there right now. It's failing quite badly. And then that would be flanked to both sides. The ambition is to have two sculpted and locally crafted totems. And then on the south side of or on the rear of the building, facing the water, the east side, this would be the upstairs patio and restaurant space that would spill out into that waterfront area. The side elevations is mostly to illustrate that we're working with the existing form character, creating some new canopies and applying materials in a fashion that just creates that interest and a little bit of variation as we go around the building. Building 2, Miller's Pub, you could see the pub area at the lower level with its existing windows are being replaced. We've got a new canopy, and we're going to be putting a fairly extensive cedar cladding on that building. You can see that the cedar is incorporated multiple times around the building. And then another combination of more industrial materials and commercial materials as well. Stones Marina kind of speaks for itself, where we have staircases up to the residential and in the commercial frontages with new storefront windows, punch windows in the upper areas for the residential. On the service sides, we've kind of kept it fairly quiet. That would be more on the deliveries in and out of the back of house of kitchen, et cetera, as you see here at Miller's Pub. This is a couple of views. So a view from Zorkin looking into the development again, showing the primary entry of building 1, the storyboard of new canopies that are promoting the mixed use, and then following that theme across to Miller's Pub with a new canopy for Miller's, and then some new canopies for the Stones building. This is another shot from the water side where you can see commercial spaces would have patios that they could utilize. So in the summertime, you can spill out. People walking around this part of the existing seawall would be able to kind of enter into the building from the water side or from the parking lot side. So creating as much diversity and linkages as we possibly can to the commercial spaces. And then just a few other shots of how the existing buildings are being crafted with an array of materials at the pedestrian level, with canopies to provide some rain covering, hoping that this would be a well-populated and a bit of a focal point year-round. A few more images, just a closer image of how we're trying to promote the sort of covered entries for the pub as you come from the parking lot. This is the backside. There's an existing patio on the backside of Miller's Pub which faces onto the seawalk. This is the pub entry, and then with Stones trying again to kind of use new canopies and materials to sort of identify entrances into commercial while making a bit more of a private approach for the residential as part of that overall mixed use. So our material palette is sort of identified here. We have a metal panel that identifies the new canopies where signage would be. We've got vertical aluminium siding as identified here, which brings that sort of boathouse light industrial feel to it. We've got cement fiber panels on the areas of the building tucked around the back, and then utilizing the cedar as primary frontage for the entire portions of the building that face into the parking lot, welcoming people from the city, and same for on the waterfront side with the accented heavy timbers and a timber structure here to promote that primary entry. I'll just pass it over to Cara, our landscape architect, who is going to be able to give us a brief description of the landscape design.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Glenn. I'm Cara McDonald. I'm the landscape architect for the project, and I am of the Secwepemc, or Shuswap First Nation. So I'll just be as brief as I can. So the plaza area is obviously the focal point in front of the main building. This plaza will use decorative paving, beach grass planting, bollard lighting, timber benches, and gateway totems with accent lighting and interpretive signage. The paving patterns and planter shapes in the plaza area are inspired by the geometric designs of Coast Salish woven blankets. The proposed bench style is benches in the planter areas are a simple rustic reclaimed beam or hewn log style intended to patina and wear over time. The plaza elements reinforce the site's main pedestrian connection from the south, as Glenn spoke about, where the waterfront walkway connects to the site through to the northern pedestrian connection to Zorkin Road. And I think that's evident from the plan. The decorative paving patterns are extended to the rear waterfront plaza, so to the east, as well as the restaurant patio to the south. We have along that the south and east sides of the building, we've included bollard lighting and new cable rails. Right now, there's a post and chain rail around that waterfront. The client would like to use cable rail styles. The parking area includes pedestrian refuge islands, painted crossings, indigenous tree and shrub planting, and overhead parking lot lights with banner arms. The two garbage enclosures are located next to the marine fuel storage area to the north. L2 shows the inspiration for the paving pattern on the top left. The benches, the cable rail, bollard light, and parking lot overhead light styles are also included on that sheet. And we also show a detail for the 2-meter high timber garbage enclosure detail that will complement the building improvements. I just wanted to briefly touch on some of the items that I didn't just mention in my presentation that the city had comments about. The bike racks, we didn't include bike racks in the plan. I think we're going to have to wait until we nail down the uses before we can figure out how many bike racks we need, but we'll definitely get those on the plan for sure. There was a comment to consider enhancements along the slopes on Stewart Avenue and Zorkin Road. These are actually off-site properties. They're city right-of-ways, and I think probably could potentially be used for future improvements for both of those road rights-of-way. There's a comment to work around some of the existing trees. I would suggest that the existing trees aren't that significant and really probably aren't feasible to be retained given all of the construction that will have to go on the property. One in particular, arbutus is grown completely under the foundation of the building and will definitely have to be removed. It's undermining the foundation. It's a little unclear. The rectangular landscape area to the east of the waterfront plaza should be green. It's intended to be lawn. It's not, it's gray, sorry. There was, the city asked to consider additional indigenous species for that area. The client wanted to keep it as a lawn area, so it'll be open lawn, and basically it'll act as an extension, a sort of flex space of the outdoor art market and the waterfront plaza. And I think that covers all of the city comments that weren't covered in the presentation. Hope that was brief enough. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much for your presentation, Glenn and Kara. I wonder, Glenn, if you could please stop sharing the screen for a moment.
Just before we're done here, I just wanted to see if Keith just wanted to comment a little bit on his scope of work, and then we'll, yes, gladly cancel the share.
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
No problem.
Hey, thanks, Glenn. Hi, everyone. Keith Davies with Cascara Consulting. We're civil engineers on this project. I can keep this pretty short. It's an existing service site. So we'll, once we get into detailed design, we'll coordinate with the other consultants and look at the existing sanitary servicing, just verify its capacity. The existing site is serviced with water. We're anticipating that there'll be some upgrades required on that due to the city's relatively new cross-connection bylaw. So probably looking at a double check valve chamber and a new water meter chamber at property line. There's a couple significant utilities on site. There's the sanitary trunk interceptor for the regional district in Nanaimo. So that's going to be at the forefront of the civil design, just to ensure that we're not doing anything to compromise the integrity of that, which we don't foresee any issues with. There's also a trunk storm main that picks up drainage from Brecken and Stewart, and then that heads through the site from west to east, and then it actually runs in between Millers and Beefeaters. It's a fairly tight corridor there, but that outlets into the channel. For typically, in these design panel meetings, the main civil topic is stormwater management. Again, here, kind of brief that we're right adjacent the ocean, so we're not looking at any retention or detention requirements for the site. The existing parking lot is will enhance the drainage there, and also have heightened detention paid to the treatment of the runoff given the proximity to the ocean. So we'll work with Kara on that and look at maximizing any opportunities to treat the stormwater runoff in landscape areas, if that's a possibility. So I think that about covers it, everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll first ask if any of the design panel members have any questions for staff regarding this proposal. Okay, not seeing any. I'll ask Angela if you would like to go first with your comments.
Yay, thanks, Kate. No pressure. Thank you, everybody, for your presentation. This is a really exciting project for everybody here, as well as the whole community. It's going to be awesome to get this functioning again like it should be. Appreciate the thoughtfulness on the trying to create a mixed space. I think a retail sort of farmer's market type thing will do really well here with the proximity to all the boaters. Just a side note, I'm going to start with the landscaping, just have a few notes. First thing, just building off one of the staff's comments about incorporating more landscaping along Stewart and is it Brecken? I understand it is the right of way, but I do feel that if the developer and the city could somehow work together to enhance those landscape areas along those road right of ways, I think that would greatly enhance the parking lot and the whole development as a whole. If it could, get all those grasses and invasives out and native species and trees that Kate would recommend. I think that would, I think that's really important part of this project. Also, really appreciate you working with Snuneymuxw First Nation and the idea of integrating their ideas with integrating their history. And just thought that it might just be nice to pull some of the art form from the totem area into the parking lot a little bit. And it's just an idea. If that's possible, I think it would be a nice transition between the parking lot and the buildings, because the parking lot is so long and huge. And as far as the lot lines do look as though they cut off right at the top of the retaining wall along the riparian zone. But I do notice there's quite a bit of blackberry bushes growing through there, and there isn't much natural vegetation there, native vegetation. So I wasn't sure if that was possible to, I know it's not the landscaping plan, but opportunities to work with maybe the province and just enhancing, removing, basically invasive removal, I guess, if you're not able to do any plantings there. More landscaping. I think that was it about landscaping. I thought that in terms of pedestrian connection, I thought there might be an opportunity to provide a pedestrian connection from the, from Stewart Ave, right at the corner of the boathouse property and Stewart Ave, and provide a pedestrian connection there and have some kind of just painted walkway going up and alongside the fishing store and providing access there. There's often multiple ferry boat rides of traffic lined up forever, and it's kind of a pain to go all the way around. If somebody's late for catching their boat, they can run up the shortcut or access it much easier from Stewart Avenue. And I don't know how that might transition into the idea of, it might just provide another pedestrian linkage from the seawall as it comes between Millers and Beefeaters there. People could continue on across to Brecken, or they could walk down and access Stewart, a little bit of a shortcut there. So that's just an idea for pedestrian connections. What else did I have? As far as form and character goes, I like the form. I appreciate that the scale isn't going to be, doubled in size. like second story. So it's, I appreciate that scale. And I thought that maybe there could be some variation, but it is, I don't necessarily think it has to be through the form of the building, but maybe enhanced by way of some planters and things to add some color to the buildings. And I'm always a fan of introducing more green technologies if possible. And I thought that a green roof might be really beautiful along the main tops of the main building where the totems will be, which will help for some of the runoff that you might want to capture. And obviously help with climate change and all those things. So just to maybe consider some opportunities for green building technologies and particularly green roof. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. I'm going to go, how about Ken, would you like to comment?
Oh, yeah, I thought that I'd like to commend the architect and developers for resurrecting this development. It's really in bad shape. I looked at it the other day and it is falling apart. And I think that in whole, I don't have any criticism. I think I like the idea of what he's trying to achieve, and certainly retaining and the existing form and sort of the industrial approach to the building. I like. I think there's some opportunities here that I guess it may happen down the road once you start leasing the place, I guess, because I see it as a place that's right now it's not attractive for most people to go there unless you're going to the pub or to Stone's Marina. And I'm not a pub person, so it doesn't, it has no attraction for me to go there, to make a special trip to go there. But certainly if they develop it correctly and there's opportunities, for example, they talk about a nice public plaza in front. I don't know how Nanaimo is going with food trucks, but certainly on weekends, bringing food trucks down there and just getting more activity in the front of the building is, you don't have to do anything at the back. There's always the boat traffic, and that's always going to be interesting. So it's just that I think you're creating this great entrance with totem poles. I think you gotta have something else to keep the people there and to attract them. Also, it becomes a destination for the sea walk from downtown, that people can walk there for lunch. And, you should look at that opportunity. It'd be great if you could have a public market like they have in the south end of Duncan, that kind of market, where they just bins of apples and fruit, and it's more like a farmer's market. That would certainly attract people, and you've got the parking there. In terms of the landscaping, I know that I've parked my car in a long-term parking stalls at the I guess it's the north end of the lot. That and that bank is very steep. So how they landscape it, I don't know, but it certainly needs landscaping would help. It's just I don't know what it is, grass and dirt and rocks. But anyways, that part of it needs to be handled by the landscapers. Other than that, I think their development will certainly enhance that whole area.
Great. Thank you, Ken. Thank you very much. Tyler, Councillor Brown, would you like to comment?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks for the in-depth presentation, the design team. I don't really have too much comments. I think, like the last one, it's really great to see an existing building sort of restored and repurposed in a way that, hopefully better serve the needs of the present and have some longevity to it. I'm just pulling it up here. Give me I did want to recognize the staff's comments around formalizing the waterfront walkway and sort of just making sure, you know, the lighting and everything like that. I think, you know, undoubtedly we want to see that come together over time, and I think, you know, doing so will serve all the properties well along there. So and other than that, I know it may be difficult, but there's just so much asphalt there. I was down there on 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I know the parking is going to be trying to retain the parking, but if there is opportunity, I think, to sort of break up some of that asphalt and landscape as much as possible, I think it would really improve the site. I'm happy to see the additions, of course, but I always feel like we have to advocate for the landscape architect on the panel to make sure they get some more license to be a little more creative and plant a few more plants. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you. And Tony, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say. I'll just focus on the sort of form and character, the architectural side of it. It's really nice, obviously, to see upgrading and refreshing of older buildings. So many of them just get torn down, and you know, that's not very sustainable. So this definitely is, particularly with the envelope upgrading and that kind of thing for reducing energy consumption for the rest of the building's life. From a point of view, just strictly appearance, there's a whole sort of jumble of buildings with a lot of disparate massing and shapes and so forth. And what I really like, perhaps to a fault, is consistency. And I think the architect has done a really, really good job of pulling it all together with a very limited but strong palette of materials and colors. And I really commend them for having that nice sort of uniformity without being boring. That really pulls everything together and makes a really vibrant, sort of updated complex out of this grouping of unfortunate buildings. So kudos to them for doing that. I was particularly excited to see the paving patterns that have been incorporated, that central entrance space with the totem poles and the canopy and, you know, the inviting entrance and those kind of things. I think that could just be a really fantastic little spot for people to enjoy and be a really attractive you know, sort of form and character focus for that entire area. Maybe take the edge off the sea of parking that's out behind it, but I really commend the use of how that's been integrated with all the other materials and finishes and colors and so forth on the site. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. And lastly, Marie.
Thank you, Kate. Yeah, first of all, I'm just this is just such an exciting project to have this property rejuvenated. Again, I've had a long history with Nanaimo, and I've walked past this building many times and just felt how sad I've just watched it sort of go downhill. And it's so nice to see a plan to rejuvenate it. And I think you guys have done a great job of sort of pulling it together. First of all, I'm really happy to see the visual presence of the Sonomas First Nations there. This is a highlight. This is a great property for that, because this is where people get off the ferry. It's their first introduction sometimes to Nanaimo. And so they drive past this, and right there's some visual presence of our First Nations community, which often isn't well represented in this city. So I'm really happy to see that. And so I really want to see this property activated. I'm really happy about your plan. I think you've done a good job of sort of pulling together all the disparate motley parts here. And I think that'll be a really big improvement. So in terms of form and character, I think it's great. My one comment would be, and concern would be, the parking lot. It's just such a huge expanse. I can remember back when that was where the ferry traffic lined up. And that was the one time the building was actually really busy. There was an ice cream shop in there, and people went in there because people were stuck there. But like Angela noted, if you're walking along Stewart, there's little inclination to even go down there because you have to walk all the way around. So if there's a way you can incorporate a staircase or something down that steep slope from Stewart so that there's several access points into that property, that would help. I also walk along the waterfront a lot, and the path kind of narrows and you walk between beefeaters and millers, and then you come into that plaza in the front. And I think you could do a lot more with that plaza. In fact, I'd love to see it larger. Like, I like what Kara's introduced with the colors and patterns, but why not push that even further into the parking lot? If you look at your plan, there's you could draw a line that sort of incorporates, if you've got the two buildings in an L shape, you could sort of fill that all in with it and just have a really large plaza. And I think with Ken's comments, so things like either food trucks or maybe a craft fair where you put up, artisans could have stalls there in the summer, for example, or something. I think you'll find that could draw a lot of people. You can use that plaza for more stuff to spill out into that property and use it in different ways. But that's just one suggestion. I think that might help. I know in those waterfront properties, it's always parking and the building's always a problem. In most of our waterfront, unfortunately, the parking's all in front of the building. It has the best view of the water. So in your situation, your building has the best view of the water. So it's perfect for restaurants and things like that. The parking's behind, but the unfortunate thing is that the first thing you look at is a huge parking expanse. So another suggestion might be is that if you can look at ways to break up that linearness, you just have the column trees running down there. If there's some way of breaking up that parking lot with more trees, so it looks less of a parking lot from the road and more inviting to draw people down to the building and across that parking lot, because it is a huge sort of wasteland. And I appreciate the fact that Kara's already introduced some trees, but even, I don't know, break up the linearness of it might help. So just some suggestions there to help with that. Otherwise, I would agree with everybody else here. More trees, if you can get them in there, more landscaping. Again, I think it just sort of will soften the edge off the pavement emphasis of that in that property. So really happy to see this project and love to see it go ahead. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Great, thank you, Marie. And lastly, I don't have much to add to what's been said. I agree with everything. I'm very happy to see this project come forward and look forward to that building being activated again and with more use than just the current operators. And I really appreciate, Kara, how you brought in the detail in the paving. And I think that's really important, and it helps sort of set it out, distinguish it. I do agree with Marie that I do think you have an opportunity to possibly look at making that plaza a little larger so that you can have a clear movement of people on walkway and plaza. I think currently now there may be a little conflict with how it's sort of laid out. Yes, you can move through there, but maybe encroaching a little bit more into the parking to enhance that plaza could be beneficial. Because I do find the one thing I wish I could see here on the site, and I know there's lots of constraints and budget is always one of the biggest ones, but is the pedestrian connections to this space. I would love to see those improved, and I can see that there is gestures to doing that, but I do see room for greater improvement, and whether it's additional stairs going down to bring people off of Stewart Ave a little sooner to your site, or maybe it's looking at improving the connections through already existing sort of loose pedestrian network. But I think there's some room to take that a little further. And I agree with the comments to try to add more landscaping and trees to that parking lot, and whether it's working with the city on the edges of the land on Stewart and Zorkin, and finding more ways to add planting and trees would be great. And I had hoped that we may have seen a little bit of shoreline kind of softening and restoration as these parcels start to redevelop. And so I know that there's a lot of constraints around that, but looking at opportunities to add more of our indigenous plant palette and vegetation along those edges so that we provide spaces for the other species that utilize the shore edge, would only enhance the project. So I suppose that goes with the overall comment of just adding more landscaping. But that said, I'm just very happy to see this project come forward. So thank you very much. Okay, so I think with our recommendations, correct me if I'm wrong, design panel, I don't think we had any recommendations regarding the design and character of the buildings. But from what I can see, we might consider ways to break up the parking lot with more plantings and trees and add more, generally more landscape plantings and trees throughout the whole site. Would you all agree with that? Okay. Consider Marie's comment about the plaza, and I agree. Consider enlarging the front plaza, the plaza at the entry to the building, so that there's more space for plaza and pedestrians. So coming into that, would you agree with that? Okay. And maybe improving the pedestrian connections to the site, whether it's with an additional staircase off of Stewart down that bank or other ways. So I'll just say consider improving. We agree with staff. We want to see the walkway continue to be improved and enhanced with all new development. And so, okay. So I guess that those three. Angela, you did mention about green roofs. Do you want me to?
Yeah, I was just going to say maybe that could be part of the form and character. That would be the one comment I saw.
Oh, right. Okay.
Character.
So do you want me to say to consider incorporating green roofs into the redesign of the building?
Yeah, right. Where feasible.
Where feasible. Well, it's a consideration, so they will consider. Yes, Tony?
Well, I was just going to say there's not much flat roof in this building, but particularly over the entrance canopy, it looked like there was a little opportunity, even if it's symbolic, to do something like Angela was suggesting. I think that would be great if it's feasible within the project. And the other thing, I don't know if you were going to mention this, but we talked about the perimeter sloping landscaping of working with the city or something to do some improvements there.
Yeah, okay, so maybe I'll leave that as an extra, I'll add that as an additional comment to consider working with the city on enhancing the bank on Stewart Avenue and Zorkin, so that right of way. I think.
May I say just one thing regarding the plaza? I think it really is a great recommendation. As you can see, perhaps this is more of a question to planning, Caleb, if there's an opportunity for us to consider perhaps a slight parking reduction in order to further enhance the pedestrian aspect of the plaza, is that something that we would have an opportunity to work with, or is it something that we would obviously have to think of the developer's ambition to reduce parking when, we may still be required to provide a significant amount of parking based on the overall vision and intention that they have to, populate all three buildings with multiple tenants and uses. So we certainly recognize the recommendation, but I'd like to ask that question just to planning to see if is there a lane for us to look at that a bit further.
Yes, thank you through the chair. And of course, Tyler just left. I was gonna put that question to him, but ultimately, of course, it would be a council decision, and any request to reduce the parking below the minimum required amount would need to demonstrate rationale that follows the council policy for consideration of a parking variance. There potentially could be some trade-off with additional amenity space for parking perhaps. Yeah, we would probably have to review that in more detail for sure. And I apologize, I just wanted to interject through the chair as well regarding the previous recommendation. I should note the right-of-way on Stewart Avenue is actually not city right-of-way, it is Ministry of Transportation. But I'm not suggesting that you would need to amend your recommendation, but just there may not be too much we can do ourselves as a city.
Okay, thank you, Caleb. Maybe what our recommendation will be to consider ways to work with the governing bodies of those lands to improve with, I mean, it would be great to see trees in there and other plants. Lori, do I need to review my recommendations? No, is it okay? Is everyone good? Could I have a motion to accept the project as presented with the 4 recommendations?
Wasn't there a variance as well?
Oh, was there?
I thought Caleb mentioned a variance.
Oh, was it a rear yard setback variance for the C is proposed for the new canopies and columns at the rear of building 1? So building 1, I actually don't know which one is building 1. Is building 1 the main?
But building 1 is the big one. So it's as we try to provide usable covered outdoor walkway and plaza spaces, the canopies extend out from the face of the buildings, and some of the columns are sort of sitting within that sort of plaza area that is between the building and the waterfront. So there are several setback lines and various other things that we need to carefully navigate through there. But given the location of the existing building 1, in order to achieve some of that stuff, we may need to encroach. We feel it's important to study this because a continuous covered pathway of sorts around that building to complement the sea walk on the water side is a great opportunity on a not so great day to kind of navigate off of the pathway and find another alternative that is that's covered. Also brings people closer to the building and the coffee and the ice cream. So
okay. Do any design panel members have any issue with the variance? No.
Yeah, okay. I'm familiar with the back of that building, and I think that we might need that. I understand what he's after there. It's quite tight.
Okay.
Yeah.
So could I ask someone to make a motion to accept the proposal, the project as presented with the 4 recommendations, and that we accept the variance? We have no issue. Yes, thank you, Marie. And seconder? Okay, Angela, seconder, and all in favor? Okay, thank you very much. Well, thank you for your presentation tonight. Thank you, everyone. We're also very excited about this project too.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, everyone. I'd also like to thank Cara and Keith and Derek, who is my colleague in the office here, for putting in the work, and also Jason. Please extend thanks on to Ian and Nanaimo First Nation for the opportunity to revitalize this important building on the waterfront.
Great.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
See you, Keith.
See you later.
And I don't think we have any other business for tonight. I believe we are finished.
Meeting to adjourn.
So meeting is adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Great work, Kate.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kate. You did a great job. Really appreciate you stepping in. So.
Yep, and we look forward to seeing you again, Ken.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
nice.
Thank you for
Nice to have you join us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.